Landmines and jellyfish, welcome back to Knives, I guess, and if marine biologists ever discovered a crab, I would be terrified. Yeah. Anyhow, today we're going to take a look at my relationship with Kershaw, which is pretty lukewarm right now. And a bit of a ramble first. I missed the ability to buy a lot of knives. I missed a whole lot of the technology moving forward. I missed out on a ton of stuff. Between writing out growing up poor, making like $11 an hour and paying for an apartment, a wife and a kid, moving and paying for a wife, 2 kids, for $14 an hour and a mortgage, and then making $9.76 an hour and still trying to pay that mortgage and take care of the same wife and 2 kids. It was brutal. So I didn't really get to buy a whole lot. But, when I was a kid, my uncle, he kept telling me how badass Gerber was and how great it was, and I didn't know nothing from nothing, so I'm like, sir, why are we talking about baby food? I'm frightened. And, I developed a soft spot for Schrade. In the neighborhood I was in, it wasn't a good neighborhood, but there was a small hardware store that had a display with Schrade old-timers, the traditionals, and some lockbacks. And I paid for a few, and I didn't pay for a few. I wasn't a good person back then, and I was a total mess when I was 12, 13 years old, and I think we all are. But after I got divorced, a friend of mine found out that I did like knives, and I had, the Schrade Beast and a couple of cheap beaters. And so he went on a tear about Kershaw, and that's how I found out Kershaw existed. Because through all of that, I didn't really have the internet, didn't go to places that sold knives. I was in a very, very small bubble. Walmart, I was there a lot, but they didn't have what they have now. The displays they had were all Ozark trails and stuff that looked like raw garbage, way beneath me even then. So when I started buying knives again, of course, I picked up a Schrade first and foremost. I grabbed this thing. And something worth noting, and I've mentioned it before, but when I worked roads and grounds at a college, I was running a leaf blower going through a wild area that wasn't maintained, trying to get stuff cleaned up in it to kind of help that area out. And a Benchmade automatic fell out of a pile of leaves right in front of me. It had a broken tip, so I took it home. I washed it out real good. I didn't even lubricate it, just got the mud out of it. And I ground a new tip on, and I loved that thing. That gave me a taste for automatic knives. And it broke after a few years because the springs were probably rusted clean through. And, it finally gave out. And I put it through hell. So when I was looking for knives again and I got this Schrade, I got it because of the shape and the colors and the chameleon paint on it, all that stuff. But when I was sitting there, I went to open it and I saw this flipper tab. So I'm like, what's this do? Oh my God, this is amazing. This is my first assisted opener and I didn't know that technology existed because, again, very small bubble. That is important because when I started buying knives again, of course I took a look at Kershaw because my friends said they were awesome. What I didn't expect to find was a Kershaw filter for $14 in 2018. That's really cheap for a knife, and I was used to stuff starting, unless it was just raw garbage below gas station grade, they were 30, 40, $50, buying them retail and what was out there. So I went ahead and got this thing. It said assisted open for $14, and assisted open became the replacement for automatic because I couldn't find an automatic for less than like $300. Until Boker dropped the Kalashnikov, and I found that and got that. But that's another story. So let's flick the bean on this. That's a fairly snappy assisted open. The frame is steel, and it's stonewashed to match the blade. And steel tends to get slippery if your hands are wet or really dried out. My hands will get super dry. Like, you can kind of see maybe where everything's a little bit crusty from handling cardboard day in and day out and get my hands dried out. So this feels really slippery. But it carried okay. It treated me okay. I liked it enough that I got one for my brother, and I'm not sure what I did to it, but there are some edge problems from something getting cut that it didn't like. There's no blade marking or no steel marking on the blade. I'm going to assume 8CR or 440. Probably 440 given how far back it was in 2018. But I did get one for my brother. I liked it enough to do that. So I carried this, and this was before I became a devout disciple of tip-up carry. So guess what? It's tip down. And I hate tip down, but we all live in sin. So, it carried well enough. And I will say my preference for tip up is purely muscle memory now. I'm used to pulling it out of my pocket or waistband like this, and it's good to go. And that's what I always do. So when it's tipped down and I have to bring it out and then fumble with it and flip it over and do stuff like that and then open it, it's annoying. I don't really drop them that often, but it does happen because my hand just doesn't like doing that to open a knife. After that, though, I picked up the Kershaw starter in 2018, a bit later in the year, for about 20 bucks. And the shape really drew me to it. And you can kind of see what I mean when I say the shape really drew me into it. I was like, all right, that looks clean. I can buy it. And 20 bucks is not bad. Let's flick the bean. That is a very good assisted open. That thing snaps open so nicely. But again, you have the steel scales, stonewashed to match the blade. And this one is shaped where even if your hands are wet or dry, you've got this notch right here where 2 fingers can sit in and you have grip for days. No problems whatsoever. And, you know, I don't hammer grip stuff a lot. It's normally a much more relaxed grip. And a lot of my cuts are pull cuts through small stuff, so I'm carrying it like this for the control. However, this thing doesn't slide around when I'm manipulating it. It's very comfortable. And again, it rode in the waistband really well, rode in the pocket really well. That being said, it's still tipped down. And you know how I feel. I hate tipped down, but we all live in sin. Say it with me, children. So, you know, this thing, what really sold me, let's flick the bean again. What sold me on it, though, is it came with a deck of playing cards. And these are just Kershaw branded cards, which, you know, they're Kershaw on the back. And I was hoping for some more customized stuff on the front. You know, some jokers that were Kershaw themed. The Ace of Spades isn't even really themed. The thumbs up on it's a nice touch, but none of this is really Kershaw themed on this side. And they kind of missed an opportunity there. But, you know, I love playing cards. I love sitting around a table and gaming, even though I don't get to do it right now. You know, being an adult, my schedule's jacked up. You know, I already had my kids. They're out, they're growing, they're doing their own thing. Because I got started stupid early, like some of us. And all of my friends that are smarter than I was and came from houses that taught them better, they're having their kids now. They're getting married now, so they don't have time either. So being an adult sucks sometimes. But that's neither here nor there. The next thing I got was the Kershaw Camshaft in 2021. So I picked this up, and at that point, I had a few knives, but I saw this and was like, okay, G10, I don't have a lot of that. I don't think I had really any G10 at that point. I was buying stuff, you know, wood, metal, the plastic stuff. Just a lot of the stuff you buy when you're not knowledgeable about knives, but you see stuff that looks pretty good. And I wasn't spending much more than 30 to 40 bucks a knife tops. So, this thing, I got it, and it's carried really well. It's actually a very good little knife. Let's flick the bean. That is a very snappy assisted open. That feels really good to snap open. You got a liner lock right here, G10 handles, and the pocket clip. We finally get there. It's tip up, which is the Lord's carry. I finally learned my lesson. And, you know, this is a good little knife. For 25 bucks, you can't argue with it. You know, it's nice and snappy. It's comfortable in the hand. It carries well. You know, all your ergos in every position are very much good enough. And this is one of those that if I got to go traveling for a few weeks, which I never do, but if I'm traveling for a week or something like that, I'll grab something like this so that if it gets broken, lost, damaged, anything like that, you know, I'm not too terribly upset with it. If I want one, I'll buy another one. But I know if I have to carry just this for a week or two, I'm going to be perfectly fine with it. It is a very, very good little knife. This is where, like, I like what Kershaw did with this one. And I'm sure some of the nicer Kershaws that I haven't had my hands on because they start getting expensive kind of fast are probably as good or better than this one. It's just my own experience. This one, however, is a really good knife for 25 bucks. I've bought more expensive knives than that are very, very disappointing and nowhere near as good as this one is. Looking at you, SOG. Looking at you, Terminus XR. So that is a really good little knife. You know, if you got 25 bucks laying around and you like what you're seeing here on this video, I'd say go get one. They're great. The next one we're going to take a look at, there's a channel that I watch that does a lot of, you know, EDC stuff, and they did a video on gear acquisition syndrome. Don't be buying stuff just to be buying stuff. And the next day they posted a link to an Amazon page that was selling 2 knives for $28. And the first one on that was the Kershaw Misdirect. And I've done a short or two on this and shown it off. And I think this thing is like 28 to 30 bucks on its own. I could be wrong about that. I didn't look up the prices before I started this video. But you got an assisted open. Let's flick the bean. And it's a slower, gummier assisted open. They probably use grease instead of oil to lubricate it. And I probably could oil it up and get it to snap open like this one does. But it's got other problems. The first one is, as narrow as it is, it's not the most comfortable grip in the world to handle it with my extra large hands. You know, and that's not a flex. I just have to buy extra large gloves for these hands. You know, stuff just kind of vanishes in them. So I got to grip this a little bit weird, which is more like this, which, that's not the worst thing in the world. I wouldn't bash a knife for that. It's still perfectly usable. However, this back is nothing but slippery, so it tends to slide down out of my hand while I'm trying to close it. Let's flick it again. Because it's really hard to hold it back on this end and push it from this end before it starts getting pushed down out of your hand. That is a problem for me. Having to hold it tight enough to really get in there and do this starts putting my hands in the way of getting caught and clipped while the knife is being closed. You see how close that is? I don't like that. Now, I can't bash Kershaw for this because I don't know myself whether that's just an issue with big hands in this particular knife or if everyone has the same problem with it. Somebody in my comments said they're a pretty big guy too and they had that problem. It's just this back here is slicker than Two Buttered Ninjas, and they could have easily done something about that. This jimping is an absolute joke right here. That is the suggestion of jimping. That is the LaCroix of jimping. All right, someone drank TV static while someone yelled jimping from the other room. It does nothing. So it's an okay enough knife, and if somebody I know didn't have a decent pocket knife and they felt like they needed one, I would definitely give it to them and not feel too bad about it. It's not a bad little pocket knife. It's a problem for me. My hands are probably just too big for it, and that's okay. It's just a little bit of a weirdness I didn't expect to find. Because other than that, everything on this is good. The scales are good. I like where the Kershaw logo is placed. We don't have huge billboards on the side. I love this modified Wharncliffe blade. It's good outside of it's too small for me to manipulate comfortably, and they made a big mistake back here. But the other one that came with that was the Kershaw Shuffle 2, and I think this might be between $18 and $24. Again, I didn't check that before I started filming, so I missed it, but let's flick the beam. The blade on this I absolutely love. This is like a little chonk, compound grind tanto, and this is not a nice aggressive. It feels like you're holding a small tank, even though it's not really anything special as far as materials or thickness, but HCR13 MOV. I finally found one that I could read. I don't know about the other ones. No, there's not that billboarding on there that tells me what it is, but that's okay. If I wanted to know badly enough, I could go look them up. But this thing, the ergos are amazingly good. Like, I can get a full 4-finger grip on this with this finger choil, and it'd be comfortable. And this thing, I carried it for a little while, like an afternoon or something like that, and it was okay. This is a tip down. And you know it. Say it with me, children. I hate tip down, but we all live in sin. And I could forgive that because the spot where a tip-up carry pocket clip would go is taken over by a bottle opener and the suggestion of a pry bar. I don't know how well you could use this as a pry bar. It's definitely not functional as a screwdriver, but I'm sure the bottle opener works just fine. However, I quit drinking back in 2008, and that story's crazy and dark, not for here. But that means I have no use for the bottle opener into this, and the tip-down pocket clip isn't worth the compromise. And the scales, I'm pretty sure they're FRN, but I'm not 100% on that. It feels like fairly cheap plastic, and that could just be the way it's textured and how thin it is, but it's still very comfortable. The texturing on here, the finger grooves, the ergos are really comfortable, going from 3 fingers to 4 fingers. Again, I've got room on either end. I cannot complain about that. They did a really good job there. If they would release this with a tip up and no bottle opener, I would be happy as hell with it. So that's this thing, and it's a liner lock. It's made really well, and this would be something that I would toss in the console of the truck or toss in the car to keep there in case I forgot a knife or I needed one and couldn't reach mine in some kind of emergency. And it would be perfectly fine there. I already have the Kexmo that I got from Dick Ritchie in the console of my truck, and it's very similar to this one, only there's no bottle opener on it. And the Kexmo is a clone of something, so it doesn't get put on the video. And I wouldn't have bought it, but I got it for free, and I didn't know it was a clone until someone pointed it out. So I threw it in the truck, and if I need something and I'm in the truck, I've got it. This is another one where I would give it to somebody that needed a pocket knife if they didn't have one, and I'd feel good about it because it's a good little knife. It's just not for me. And like Kershaw did a good job designing this one, and I wish it was for me because I love that blade profile. That is a really nice little blade. It's very stout. It's pocket cleaver-ish. It's it's me. It's in my wheelhouse. So that's the Kershaws I have right now. I haven't had any of the really nice ones. I haven't had the Leak or anything that's, nicer. I haven't had the autos, nothing like that, because I don't have the money to spend on them. So these right here have left me with a fairly lukewarm relationship with Kershaw, and I'm sure if I bought the nicer ones, I'd probably feel quite different about it. But these are what I have. And if you've made it this far, thank you for listening to the ramble. I had this video idea 2 days ago, and I probably tried to record it 8 or 9 times last night and couldn't get the vibe right. I recorded it. I was on the perfect take, and my manager called me and interrupted it. So this is like the last take I'm going to do. But all that being said, thank you for looking at my crap. Thank you so much for the subscribers. You guys are awesome. People keep showing up, and I'm so grateful. That first 1,000 is going to feel so good when we get there. And thanks for the comments. They make me feel better, and they make me enjoy this a little bit more. Like you guys know, I like the dialogue. I at least like exchanging thoughts with people. And all that being said, thank you for watching. Y'all have a nice day.